Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
I'm Safaa Kagan, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
Thanks for listening. I'm Tom Gentry. It's Sunday, May 31st. This is for the June 2nd episode. Part 2 of my conversation with Safaa Kagan. As of right now, there are 1,784,824 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the United States, and 104,217 Americans have died from COVID-19. I got out a little bit over the weekend. I had a friend in from Puerto Rico and spent some time with him at his hotel. And I got to tell you, I was just shocked at how many people are not wearing masks. So I don't know. It kind of seems like everybody's forgotten that we're in the midst of a pandemic that's killing people, but I haven't forgotten. And I don't know. I hope this doesn't get as bad as I think it will. And in the midst of all this, we're seeing protests in the streets. And I heard somewhere over 75 cities in the United States in response to the murder of George Floyd. And it just boggles my mind that all those police officers haven't been arrested yet. The one who actually had his knee on the man's throat for 9 minutes was finally arrested a couple days ago. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty tired of hearing white people complain about how the oppressed choose to protest. It's not for us to say. So anyway, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Safaa. She's pretty awesome. So here you go, Safaa Kagan.
Just the product of some bad seeds. Just some guys that ruined the weed.
It's very apropos that you wanted to talk about perfectionism, because in the middle of our recording, of all things, someone started power washing a dumpster outside my window, which is like 2 feet away from the microphone. The window is. So we got into the story that I wanted to hear you tell, and all of a sudden this machine's it. So my perfectionism got triggered a little bit. Did yours?
Oh, yeah. Isn't it funny how synchronicities like that happen? Here we are like trying. I wanted to talk about perfectionism because it's a part of this course I'm developing. And it's something that I really had to deal with. And the power washing thing happened. We're like, oh, here we go. We have to edit this.
It's okay.
I'm Safaa Kagan, and this is the path to authenticity. That's something you discover, and it's a hidden enemy, and you don't really know at first because you want to produce and you want to do these things, but you have this mindset that really can stop the true beauty from coming out, and that's perfectionism, and it will stop you because you think your work is not good enough, so I'm not going to do it. Or, I didn't do it right. Or
How does it manifest for you? What's it look like when perfectionism is getting in your way? Because I know how it happens with me most of the time.
You mean how am I triggered?
Well, so for me, a lot of times the way my particular brand of perfectionism plays out is that I don't start things because I tell myself like, well, I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I don't have the time, or I need this kind of space to do it, or whatever. When really all I need to do is take action and do something to move in the right direction. But I talk myself out. It's that perfectionism on that end that stops me a lot of times, rather than like just nitpicky going crazy with stuff on the other end, you know? So what's it look like for you?
For me, it's what I expect the work to look like. And because I see it in my mind, and then I'm expecting it to look like that. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I have this fear, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to this place to do these portraits, and what if I fail? And what if they don't look exactly like I want them to look? Or so I always lived with these expectations, and then one day I'm like, well, just create without expectations. How about that for a change? You know?
Yeah.
And so what if it doesn't look the same?
Yeah, because, you know, maybe it'll end up looking like something you didn't visualize, but even better.
Yes, exactly. You are not giving it that chance for it to be born differently. You know, and so what if you F it up? You could always try again, you know, but watching those expectations, being aware that they happen, and not falling into that space. So you basically, the perfectionist will be living in all of us at all times. Mm-hmm. It's that voice that whispers, you know, you have to just watch out for it. And when it comes, you just rebel it.
Yeah. So,
and that's art. When you watch children make art, and there is none of that, and none of that. And it's this pure joy. They just make it messy, and they make it beautiful or not beautiful, but they allow it to be without putting any blocks on it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's, I'm trying to think of the Picasso quote about, you know, I mean, basically the goal is for us to be children again. I feel like I think children are perfect the way they are. And, you know, it's the world that turns them into us. That, you know, if we could just maintain what we were before, everything would be fine, you know? And we can learn a lot from kids, just like you're talking about, because they don't have those inhibitions.
Yeah.
You know?
My children have taught me more than any teacher can teach me. And I just watch them. And it's like, I want to be you when I grow up.
I said that to my son not all that long ago, you know?
Yeah. They're just pure. But speaking of quotes, the author, Elizabeth Gilbert, says it so perfectly. She says, I think perfectionism is just a high-end haute couture version of fear. And it's so true.
Yeah.
You go back to step one. You go back to fear, and you block it from flowing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
So you just have to watch for when that happens, and when it does, you just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because every attempt that you try, every art is art. Every creation is creation. You don't have to put a label on it, or it's what needed to manifest at that time. And it's fine if you don't like it, you know, throw it away. Give it to somebody.
Well, Yeah. Expectations. You know, one of the sayings in the world of addiction and recovery is, expectations are premeditated resentments. Because things never turn out the way we expect them to anyway. And so, you know, if you're expecting what you see in your head to appear and you're not open enough to let it play out the way that it might, instead of trying to control it into being what it, you know, you think it should be, then you're going to be missing out on what's possible. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We go back to the control.
Yeah.
The control freak in us.
Yeah. And creativity is really the antithesis of that. Mm. And, you know, it reminds me of, I took a creative writing workshop in college. It was around 2000. And, you know, we did a little bit of everything. But there was this particular assignment. I'm not really a fiction guy, you know, I'm a nonfiction guy, and I've played around with poetry enough that I can do it, but it's not my thing. I just love words. But, we had to write just a basic dialogue between two people. And I was living at this place down here in Lake Worth and east, like nice area, and in a condo, and laying by the pool on a Sunday afternoon with a steno notebook, thinking, what the hell am I going to write about? Like, I have no idea what I'm going to write about. But then I got tuned in, and I didn't have an idea. I just started writing. And this father and son just started talking to each other.
Wow. You
know, and it ended up being a coherent conversation with like a denouement, and like, you know, I mean, I could have never imagined it. I couldn't have scripted it. But it was a really great lesson because, man, you know, we got to be the channel. That's what it is. It's being the channel for something else. And so trying to control that is, you can't really do it. You know, I mean, you can stay true to it, maybe, but like, you can't really shape it. It's going to go where it's going to go.
Yeah. And when it's supposed to flow, it will just flow through you. And sometimes, you know, have those people just say, oh, my hand just kept writing. Mm-hmm. I didn't really do anything. Or, you know, I just did this and this picture got taken, like in my case. Or sometimes it will just surprise you how, and you're thinking, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I feel like the more you are allowing creativity to be around you by not blocking it, the more it's going to show up more.
Yeah.
It's like this consciousness that knows what you're thinking. So if you are creating blockages by your perfectionism or your resistance or your fear or all of these things, you are pushing it away. Mm-hmm. When you are dealing with these things, you do the opposite. You really draw it towards you. Mm-hmm. And you start living in this state of, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's pure bliss because she knows that she is welcome.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
I know for me, other disciplines, like I write, you know, that's like my main creative outlet. But I love visual art and I love music and all of that feeds me. creatively. And for you, what's that look like? What role does that play in your creative process, being exposed to other creative endeavors?
Oh, I mean, I could go on and on about all these people that have created all these incredible things that just brought so much to my heart. I mean, there's music, there's things that I just wish I could collaborate with all these people, you know. I feel like there is this space that they all have tapped into. And that's where they pull all these amazing things, whether it's their lyrics or whether it's their TV shows or whether it's their writing or their food or but they have touched me just like I'm hoping my work has touched someone else. And I feel like that's when you can do that with your work, whether you make money or not make money, whether you're famous or not, whether it goes anywhere or not, but if you have really touched someone's heart, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
But not many. It takes a certain energy for you to tap into that. You have to deal with so much. I mean, the courage, you know, all this stuff that you have to deal with. And it's beautiful when it happens. It really is. It makes us be one, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So how did you know you wanted to be a photographer? How'd that happen?
When I think when I was a kid, I always was very sensitive. And when I saw a photograph that really had a feeling, I would feel exactly what that person feels like. And I didn't really know how to describe it at the time. I'm like, wow, that really got to me. That really got to me. And they were always associated with, I don't know, advertising or something in magazines. So I thought I wanted to do advertising. And I remember when I moved to the U.S., I signed up at an art school, at the Art Institute, and I wanted to do advertising. And for some reason, I kept seeing the photography program and the dark room and all these, you know, this beautiful program that they had created there. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do photography instead. I don't know what kind of I didn't know what kind of photography at the time. I thought I was going to be a fashion photographer and move to New York City. And just the way my life has unfolded. And I didn't end up moving to New York, thank God, because we were a young married couple. And my husband, who was an attorney, would have probably had to work for 100 hours. I would have never seen him. I would have probably been in another world. So we didn't end up moving to New York. And I worked for this incredible woman who actually came to my graduation and she did my portfolio review. And she offered me a job as a, assistant studio manager, that type of stuff, right? And I was with her probably until I had kids for maybe 6 years or more. Even after I had kids, we still worked together. And I have learned so much from this amazing mentor. First of all, she's a very strong woman, so I learned there's so many lessons in that. And she taught me everything I knew about photography. But she really taught me how to the technical stuff, which is the stuff that you learn in school. But when you're actually interacting with people, you have to learn that energy flow between you and your subject. And it's an unspoken language. but you have to create that flow in order for your subject to be comfortable, for you to be comfortable, for you to receive those looks of, whatever you want the goal of the photo to be. So she really taught me how to tap into that. And she also taught me a lot about traveling, and about, running a business, all that stuff. But I really, there's a lot of people who take pictures and there is no current, if that makes sense.
No current. Say more about that.
No, there is no current, energy current, no flow that happens between the photographer and his subject. And I think that's crucial to learn, really. If someone is not comfortable, you're going to know.
Yeah.
They're not going to be vulnerable enough to show you who they are. And you will know every time you see a photo. So I'm really grateful to have had that experience in Florida with her. She still is one of my really good friends. She's about 80 years old now. But she still lugs her cameras around India and Tibet and you name it. And it's just fascinating to watch. It's one of those people that have changed my life. Really.
That's great. What's her
name?
So
that's how I ended up being Nancy Brown. That's how I ended up doing this.
But what you're talking about, what you did at the Art Institute is you followed your intuition.
Mm. But also the universe would throw you these little gifts.
Right.
And you have to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am thinking I was doing this. The control freak in me is like, oh no, we're going to New York. You're going to work for so-and-so for all these years, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to get an agent later. And you're going to have all these accounts. And then this opportunity happened. And I'm like, well, maybe I should take a job here in Boca.
Hmm.
And it turned, now I cannot even imagine having that life that I had pictured,
Yeah. I can relate to that.
It's amazing the way your people's life ends up, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And I think about it a lot being a parent. Like I just, I was talking to somebody about this last night, I guess, that we have this idea of how they're going to grow up and what they're going to look like and what they're going to act like and how our relationships are going to be and like all this stuff. And it's like, no, we don't know.
You have no control.
We have no idea. It just is.
If we haven't learned this lesson through this whole COVID-19 stuff, we have no control.
Yeah, it's true.
And we think we're like, oh, when you connect to with your higher self, you watch little you here on earth trying to but it didn't happen this way.
Right.
And when you release it, it's so nice.
Yeah. It feels a lot better when we let go, doesn't it?
You let go. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So there's
the other thing I really want to tap back into and talk about is courage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's at this time, seeing all what's going on and wanting to really do what's going on and like I talked about before, having all those limited beliefs. Sometimes you just have to do it, and it sucks. And getting out there is not comfortable, and exposing your work to the world to critique it and trash it and love it and all that stuff is not comfortable, but it's necessary
and worthwhile.
I'm in this teacher training for Kundalini Yoga, and our teacher always he talks about courage a lot, and he said something that I thought it was interesting, and I never really thought and never really knew. He said that courage comes from the Latin word cœur, right? And in French, cœur, which is written slightly different, means heart. So speak one's mind by telling all one's heart.
I like that.
And right?
Yeah.
And that's really where it resides. And you have to kind of purify the heart, because we all have these limited beliefs, or, my heart will be broken if I dare.
Yeah.
But then you're not living from the heart. You're more in the mind space.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get to tap into that source of courage because you're in your head. But it's really hard for creativity to move without courage. It stays idle in a way. So I feel like, having courage doesn't really mean the fear is gone, right?
Well, yeah, it brings to mind my favorite quote. One of my favorite quotes is by Mark Twain, and it's that courage is not the absence of fear.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's the mastery of fear. It's the resistance to fear. Mm-hmm. That's what courage is. It's resistance to fear. And so that's why you mentioned earlier having to acknowledge the fear. Mm. How do we exercise courage if we're not willing to acknowledge the fear?
Yeah. They have to coexist.
Right.
And when fear is in the room, there's this transmutation that happens. When courage is in the room, there's this transformation that happens, right?
Yeah.
And you start going from your heart again, not overthinking things, and you allow. Mm-hmm. And that's when you become inspiring to others.
Mm.
It's almost like this rebellion.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I know this is crazy, but I am meant to do it, and I know I have to do it, and I will do it, because I'm refusing to, like I said earlier, to be on my deathbed and thinking, what if?
Well, but the power in that action is remarkable. We all have opportunities to do that, to step into ourselves and grab hold, and the fear is what leads us to those opportunities.
Oh yeah.
And the courage thing I like about that explanation of courage is that, the way I grew up, I always kind of thought of courage as something either you have or you don't. Like bravery, either you're brave or you're not. And it's just not like that. It's a dynamic thing. It's there and you can exercise it if you choose.
Yeah.
And when you don't, you don't respect yourself.
Well, I feel like also experiences that we have can, mostly negative, will tell our heart sometimes to shut down. So we close our hearts because we want to guard it, and we don't want to have to deal with all those traumas, and it just has to come to a point where we purify it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and it also relates to living in the moment, because when we do that, we're living in our past, and we're bringing our past into the present.
Yeah. Because stuff will happen. I remember I had this show in Paris, and it was one of the biggest weekends for photography in France. And I was showing there. Every big gallery in the world was there, and every big photographer's work was being shown. And honestly, I was afraid to be with those people because I knew I had to put on my, bring in the A game, because I knew all of these people will look at my work from the perspective of other photographers and, see all the things that regular people probably don't see. And so actually some of the people that I showed with in those shows were some of my biggest inspirations. So that even had its voice here, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I took my portfolio to some galleries there for a portfolio review. And boy, did I get destroyed. I mean, pulled apart. That feeling like you're naked or you're vulnerable or ashamed and angry at the same time, right?
Right.
Every feeling. I mean, I felt like, oh my God, what have I done? I remember one gallery owner literally told me, now go make art. I mean, it was quite an experience. But what do? You have to really get back up. And I mean, for me, I had to get back and just do more art shows, because I didn't really want to live with that idea that someone's opinion of my work was going to destroy me. I mean, that trip was, oh boy. But yeah, you just have to, it's like when you fall off the horse, you get back. That's it.
Well, and it's the process,
Yeah.
We're not, this is something that I've talked about in this podcast. For a long time, I beat myself up because I hadn't written a book yet, because I felt like by now I should have written a book. And it finally hit me a few years ago. I couldn't have written the stuff that I was supposed to write. The kind of things I write now, I couldn't have written when I was 25 years old. I didn't know what I know. And I didn't, life just kind of steeps us, and I needed to go through everything I've gone through. And I'm sure that's true for you, for the the portraiture that you do. I mean, to be able to really pursue what you're pursuing, you wouldn't have done that at a different time in your life, right?
No.
And so it's, sometimes it's just being patient with ourselves, which goes back to our, perfectionism. We have these expectations of ourselves, like we're supposed to be at our very best at all moments. Yeah. And that's just not reality.
No, I feel like sometimes when those things happen, you have an opportunity to create thicker skin, you take you do it as many times as you can do it until you are very comfortable with that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When I started doing art shows, the more art shows I did, the more I was comfortable with first of all, with talking to people about my work, which I was not comfortable to do.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, to just take everyone's opinion, because everyone is entitled to their opinion.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with what I create. They do them, I do me.
Yeah.
But if you freeze there, you don't allow the artist in you to grow. Some people will pull you apart. Some people will encourage you. Some people will cry because your work has really touched them. Mm. You get it all. You get all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. You get all the people.
One of the things, the way I describe the show is that they're all different kinds of guests, but the one common thing is they're people who know who they are.
Mm.
You can deal with everyone's opinions and ideas about what you do because you know who you are.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, man, that wouldn't work out very well, would it?
No.
But then you had to go through what you had to go through to become who you are and know who you are. And It's a process.
Yeah. But I think it's when you believe in your why so much that nothing really matters. And then there's those moments when someone walks by your work and just stares deeply into these people's eyes and says stuff like, "You just gave me a gift."
Yeah.
And then you have this chill feeling going all over your body, and you're like, oh, those are the moments that just fuel you, right? Mm-hmm. And they make you so freaking glad that you do what you do.
Yeah.
So when those people come and they give you the tiniest little soul food,
mm-hmm.
then you have an energy to keep it up.
You know, it's,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I had something happen to me a few days ago. Well, it didn't happen a few days ago, but I heard about it a few days ago. I was having a conversation with one of my other guests who I'm friends with, and he is a co-owner, and he runs a program in Georgia, an addiction treatment program, and they launched it like this time last fall. You know, it isn't even a year old. And, but I really believe in what they're doing, and I believe in him. And so I had him come on the podcast and tell his story about it. And he told his story. So he was talking to me about speaking to these parents about their son, who was a disaster. You know, he was just a mess. And he spent a long time with them, and they were on the fence about whether they were going to do it or not. And they had some other place in mind. And the next morning, the dad called him and said, "This is where we want him to go. This is the place for us." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, what was it? What made up your mind?" And he said, "Well, I went on your website last night and I listened to that podcast."
Wow.
And, you know, this is a place where, like, this is a kid who is suffering and lost, and he will go there and he will be loved and nurtured, and it will change his life. Like, there's no doubt. I mean, if he'll let it, it will. And it just gives me chills to think about. I would have never even imagined that something like that would have come of this. Really. I never even thought of it. But it's the whole point. So people can have better lives. That's why I want to do this.
Well, that's what that's why it matters so much that we do what we do with our time here, you know. Because eventually someone will benefit from it. So make it and release it out there. And it's okay if you criticize, but there is somebody out there who needs that work that you have released. And they need to listen to it, and they need to see it, and it will matter to them, just like it matters to you.
Yeah.
And they will, and you will be remembered by those that you have touched after you're gone, which is the legacy.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's, like I said, there's so many people that are gone that they have touched me so deeply with their art that I couldn't imagine not having that. Such a gift. I never really paid for it, but it was a gift. It was really important. And if sometimes you don't dare to explore that space of, you know, that unknown space where you are going to pull that art from, it's a shame in a way, no? Because somebody is missing out on that, on some experience that you were supposed to give them.
Well, and the other thing that it makes me think about is, like, we get these little nudges and we got to listen to them, or we don't have to, but if we do, it pays off. And with that story, I mean, there was a nudge like, maybe I ought to call that guy and see if he wants to be on the podcast. I bet that would help him. You know? I mean, I was just looking to show up for a friend. And that little nudge, I mean, and even just the fact that I did it meant a lot to him and to other people because of what came of it. And my friend Mimi, her daughter, listened to me interview her mom and got to hear a side of her mom that she never knew. And, you know, she heard a different story about her mom that she didn't ever hear. And it was so special to her. And I've had that happen too. Just these unexpected gifts that come, and none of this would have happened if I sold out and just went and got a 9-to-5, you know? I mean, I'd still, you know, be wishing I was doing something else. So we got to follow it, man.
I mean, fear will creep up on you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But you just have to practice your courage when that happens. And some days are going to feel overwhelming and like sort of like how we're feeling right now, you know, and these feelings are just so strong that you don't really want to be in the brave zone, but you kind of have to. That's how you show up for the world.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm sure I'm interested to know if there's a similar experience that you've had with your life, your creative life, with this podcast. Like, there were things about this that were so hard, that I showed myself how committed I was. Like, I had every excuse to quit that I could have imagined. And, you know, I could have told well, I stopped because of this, and it would have made total sense. But like going through that and having that determination and just refusing to give up. I mean, you must have experienced that at some point, right?
I mean, right now, like I just can't travel.
Yeah.
There is no art shows. There is no photo shoot. There is no nothing. It's just, so you have to just put that baby on the back burner for now and get and channel that creativity into other parts of your life. Because it's there. It's there. It's just how you use it. You know?
So what's that look like for you right now? How are you using it?
Oh my God. I remember you asked me the question before we did the interview, when we were first talking about doing the interview.
Yeah.
And you said, and the question said, describe a day in your life. And I laughed out loud, you know, because I'm like, does he mean during confinement?
Right.
Or does he really mean a typical day when life is normal? But I feel like creativity doing creative things, doing what I love from when I wake up until I go to bed, has really allowed me to channel that what we're all experiencing and almost save myself, you know? I wake up every morning. There's a couple things that I do the end of every morning, at the end of every night, is I commit to watch my plants. I check on my plants as soon as I wake up. And I end my day by watching the sunset. Never fail. Whatever happens in between is different every day, clearly, you know. Some days I just write. Sometimes I just develop a course. Sometimes I take photographs. Sometimes I just try to connect with that, like I called earlier, that Adi Shakti, because it really changes your perspective about things.
Mm.
And I feel like committing to having a certain time in your day to do whatever creative work you want to do, whatever you feel like you want to do, but really, really committing to doing it, that's key, because then you allow creativity to show up for you, and I feel like no matter how creative you feel, even if you don't even feel as flow, even if you are out of it that day, just show up. Just show up to that same exact spot, whether you do your thing at the same exact time, whether it's your garden in the morning, whether it's your studio, whether it's, shower where you sing, I don't know. But it's like the ultimate self-respect you can do for your creativity, for yourself,
Yeah.
Just like you show up for your appointment or your child's recital or your friend's wedding, or but you forget to show up for your creativity. And that's really, if you can do that, it will help it come often.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your practice. If you're doing a certain practice every day, it does show up. It pays off.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in that space, there's a lot of stillness that happens. It's almost like when you're in a meditation, let's say, and you are doing that thing that you will enjoy, and you're being present with it, and nothing else matters. Even if it's 20 minutes, I don't care whatever time you want to commit to yourself. It's just do it daily. Give it the space to be born.
Yeah.
Because it really will. It will surprise you.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about is, I know you have one photograph that is just incredible that you won't sell, right?
Yes.
Will you tell us that story?
Okay. I will tell a brief story about the photo.
Okay.
What I think what Tom is referring to is this photo of my son. It's a portrait of my son that I took in the Sahara Desert. And I was actually supposed to be photographing the Tuareg land there. And one of the guides had bought my son a Tuareg outfit, with the blue hat and the blouse. And my son put it on, and he came over to where I was working. And, I was in my zone. I was doing my thing. I couldn't really see what was happening around me because I was so focused. And I looked next to me, and there was my son. And he probably didn't recognize who he was, because I saw a different version of him. And my son doesn't really like photographs. I mean, sometimes your children are hardest ones to photograph as a photographer. But I asked him if I could just take one portrait, and I did. And it took a millisecond. It was so fast, but it happened. And I felt that magic. It just happened. And I looked at the back of my camera, and I couldn't really believe it. I mean, I connected so much with that photo. And anyway, so I decided to make a print, made a big print of it. And
describe for listeners a big print. Tell them what we're talking about here.
A big print. Okay. That big print is a 40 by 40 with borders. So
enormous.
60 by 60 inches.
Big photograph.
Yes, big print. Really big print. And, I put it on my website. Every single show that has picked work off of my website has picked that exact same photo. And sometimes I have no control of what they pick. It's shown in Tokyo, it was shown in France, it was shown in Italy, it was shown in LA. it was one of those photos. Anyway, so long story short, I do the LA Art Show, and I take the big print to the LA Art Show because we happen to have an extra wall of space. So I figured, well, I can't have that empty wall. I'm just going to take the photo from my house and put it on that wall. And everyone who came to the show would just stare at that picture. And at the very end of the show, this guy, gallery owner or whoever, came over and he started looking at the photo. And at that point, the last day of the show, the last hours of the show, all the artists usually know this, but people try to come and get a deal,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
So he knew what he was doing. He looked at me and said, what are you asking for that one? And I knew exactly what he was doing. And I got this feeling like, oh no, that's my photo and that's my son and you are not buying it. And he looked at me and you can tell that I didn't have something unheard of, right?
Yeah.
At a big art show, you want to sell your art. That's what you do.
Right.
And I looked at him and I said, anything that one's not for sale. And he gave me the stare like, what? What did you just say? And he said, why? I said, because it's a special photo. And he said, I could tell it's a special photo and that's why I want it. But the feeling of having a part of your heart in someone else's house.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot of us artists deal with that. You get so attached to your work that you don't want to release it. I mean, some people love their paintings and they don't want to put it out there. And there's some art that you have never seen before because people feel so attached to it that they don't even want to,
right,
like for their eyes only type of art, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that was an interesting, you know, I remember coming home and telling the story to my son. And he said, what? I thought I was going to get a commission.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking about, I mean, these aren't small numbers we're talking about here, right?
No. It was a big commission. And he's like, Mom, can you just get an iPhone? I said, no. but yeah, I mean, it's something, you go through these crazy feelings and
well, here's why it matters to me. And you told me this story the day we met. You're doing it because you love this, not for the money. Because if it was for the money, you'd have sold it.
Oh, I mean, my gosh.
It was a lot of money.
I didn't really get into that part of the story. But yeah, if it was for the money, which at that moment I knew I do this because it matters to me. I do this because I love it. I do this because it's what fires me up, you know? Yeah. And listen, if money comes, it's amazing. Right. And money did come and amazing things happen. But at the same time, that's not really why.
Right.
Your why is so much more, so much deeper than that. And artists who are selling, they know this. They know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, it's funny. I've written some stuff that I've had trouble letting go of and putting out into the world. And it's not because I don't it's because like I want to protect it, you know, like, it's important to me. And, you know, I'm afraid if I put it here, then somebody will copy and, you know, I'm like, and you know what? It doesn't matter. That's not the point. I mean, the point is the message.
Yeah.
It's not about
and you know what when you pour your heart out on paper or in a film or whatever, however or in song lyrics, whatever it is that you do, somebody else meets you that has this exact feeling and he goes, me too. I know. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you mean. Me too. And in that feeling, a lot of healing happen for both of you.
Yeah.
And if you are judging your own work to release it,
Mm-hmm.
you're limiting both of you.
You know, it's like I don't want people to steal my ideas, because I feel like, you know, I have some pretty good ideas. I'm saying things in what I write about that nobody else is saying, at least not that I know of. But it's that's coming at it from a place of scarcity rather than abundance.
Mm.
You know, and
because the idea was not there to belong to you,
right?
You know, it's not really yours to hold on to. It's there for you to pull it from that space and then release it. You're just a channel, basically.
Right.
It's really like a tube.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that exact idea did not come through you, it will go through someone else.
Right.
That's why a lot of times you see same thing. You probably see it here, and they've never met each other. They've never seen each other's work. It's this energy that needed to get released, and it's looking for a vessel.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're the vessel. Sometimes Bob is the vessel. Sometimes Robert. You know, it's just,
right.
The idea doesn't really have label. It's just whoever is willing to carry it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, that's why you just have to ask yourself, like, you know, what are those things that really do fire me up and make me really go back to that space and do them. And, you know, open that heart. It's not going to be easy. Just open that heart.
Yeah.
And you'll see,
yeah.
Stuff will start to happen, and
yeah.
freak you
Well,
out.
now, I mean, I have a plan for it now, so I mean, I get it now. I see what I'm doing myself, and I'm not gonna keep doing it. But now it's like, okay, how do I be strategic about this? You know, so yeah. So okay. I could just talk to you forever, and
I know.
probably wouldn't be good. So, one time in your life when you needed support, you know, and there was something you needed to hear, when would that have been, and what would you say to her?
Oh wow, there's so many of those moments. But the first thing that came to my mind was when I first moved to California, and you know, it was strange because I really did not know many people here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, my sister-in-law, who used to live in LA, moved back to Miami the same month we moved here.
Wow.
It was very strange. Anyway, so I moved here, you know, and I live in basically I live in the middle of Santa Monica Mountains. We don't have really that many neighbors. We have great neighbors that live across the street, but it's not like, you don't feel like a community. And in a way, I love it because then such an introvert that, living in confinement really hasn't changed my life so much.
No, I've enjoyed it.
Oh, I know, right? But anyway, so I moved here, and here I am. I had to release my master printer in Miami, and you know, I had this other lady that was really fired up about working with me, and I had to let that go. I had to, you know, all my friends that I've known since I moved to the U.S. It was a lot of, I felt some separation happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt lonely in a way. I was liked that lonely, but I felt lonely. And that kind of put a pause on my work. I just didn't want to do anything, didn't want to look at it, didn't want to open my hard drive, didn't even, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day, I'm like, Safaa, just get out of it. Go find yourself a studio where you get out of the house. And even for, you know, the time the kids are in school, we homeschool. So, you know, just get out there, outside of your house, and try. Just give it another try. So I found looked for places. I finally found the cutest little studio here, right next to where I am. And I went to see it and meet the landlord. And I remember I loved it so much. I couldn't even believe that place existed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that same building, there was this beautiful person that really, really has changed my life. And my landlord said, "Oh, you have to meet Olivia. She has done so much for my wife and I. She's a career coach. You have to meet." Anyway, I took her card, blah, blah, blah. And then I got home and I called her. And I said, I'm going through this rut and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I don't know, nobody really cares. And why am I doing this? And I just moved here. And I'm so sad. I miss my friends. I miss my family. And all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she said, "Why don't you come in for a free session? And then we'll talk about what you do and see how you can get out of this mess, this rut." Anyway, so I did. And I feel like it was so meant to be. Those moments, like she was just so meant to be there at that space at that time. And we ended up really, really working through a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that came up. And I feel like so much came from that really has made me want to venture and do other stuff and never really not wanted to give up. And I remember she asked me, she said, "You know what you need? You need to do some yoga or something. Go meet people. Why don't you come and go to my class? I teach this Kundalini yoga class. Just come to class on Thursday and then you really like it." So I did. I went to class that day. And I had this unbelievable feeling. I don't know if I can even describe it. It was just so needed, and I looked at her and I said, "What was that? And I want to know, and I want to learn this, and what just happened? And how do I learn this stuff? Because this was incredibly powerful." And I think I went to maybe 2 other classes before I decided to do teacher training. And that really, really changed my life. It changed the way I look at my work. It changed the way I judge myself. It changed the way I deal with my imperfections. It changed my way I dared. It changed so much in me. But at the same time, I had to really look at things straight in the face, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was very transformative. I don't know if that answers your question, Tom.
Well,
I think I just keep going on and on.
Somewhere in there's something you would say to the younger you. What would you say?
If that person who was in that space, she knows that inside of her, there is this mother voice that's always going to be there when you're in those times, like it will whisper to you like, "Hey, it's going to be okay,
mm-hmm.
And it's going to be okay, Safaa. I'm right here with you." And it's so soothing and it's so compassionate. And I feel like we all have that voice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's so much in it, we don't listen, but it's within all of us. So I want to tell that person who was in that space to listen. Just know that everything will be okay. And I am so thrilled. That I didn't give up. Because then everything starts coming. Yeah. All the shows, all the sprints. Yeah. I mean, and I kept allowing it. And the more I allow it, more incredible stuff start happening.
Right.
I remember one time I said, "Oh, I really need to find a printer a master printer here. And then I go to Paris and I met this lady, and she said, "Oh, you have to meet my friend. He actually lives in LA. You would love to work with him because he's blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Oh, that's really cool." It's exactly what I was looking for. So stuff will keep happening that you know you are on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
There's a flow in your life and synchronicities, and the right people will meet you, and it's kind of a beautiful way to go about it.
Well, I feel like you're an example of that to me, you know, that I'm doing the right things because, you know, that I mean it. Like it just makes me really happy to know you and to get an opportunity to talk to you like this. So I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, I mean, I am so honored. Like when you asked me, at first I didn't really know what the podcast was about, you know, but then when I really deep dive in the episodes, I feel like all these people that you have interviewed are such gifts. They all bring their things so beautifully to the world, and they keep the fire energy alive in the rest of us.
Yeah.
You know, you listen and you're like, wow, if this matters to me, then I need to matter to someone else.
Right. Yeah. And you do.
And then your work becomes necessary.
Yeah.
Because you know how affected those people, the effect of their talk has done to you.
Yeah. Well.
And you know, like you know, you're just one of the many artists out there who are shining this special light in the world. You know, you see it every day, and it just brings a lot of joy knowing that you're not battling this alone. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we're on the same team or in the same regiment or army or whatever you call it. I'm glad that you
whatever that thing is, right?
Being a part of it with you, because that means a lot to me. So, all right, Safaa, thank you.
Yeah, go make some art.
I'm gonna. You too.
And don't judge it, right?
I won't.
Don't judge it.
Don't you judge it. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye, Tom.
All right, there you have it. 2 episodes in the books with Safaa Kagan. Really enjoyed having her, and it's a pleasure to have become her friend. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you check out her art, safaphoto.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please tell a friend about it, or if there's another episode, you know someone who would enjoy it, please forward it to them. We'd love to hear from you. You can email the show at thepath-to-authenticity@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Instagram or like us on Facebook at The Path to Authenticity. Got plenty of great episodes coming up. You can learn more about the show at thepath-to-authenticity.com. You can find the show on Patreon, where by becoming a patron, you can gain early access to episodes and other supplemental content. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Please take the time, if you could, to review the show on Apple Podcasts, leave a rating, or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Follow us, like us, whatever. We'll be back soon. Got some great episodes coming up. Be nice. The Path to Authenticity is powered by Equivox. For digital marketing and web design services, visit equivox.com.